it's me again, I'm Nafith. In this simple video, we'll talk about the user-based tunneling. So we will have the client perform authentication, whatever authentication, so either MAC or .1x authentication. That authentication request will be sent from the switch to ClearPass Policy Manager. The ClearPass Policy Manager will authenticate the client that has connected. Now that authentication can be, as I said, MAC or .1x authentication. The authentication response or the request that will be accepted, for example, ClearPass Policy Manager will send in the response a VSA, vendor-specific attribute. We call it Aruba user role. Now that local user role has been configured on the switch. So that local user role has been configured on the switch. The client will be assigned that role. On the switch itself, that role will indicate to tunnel. So tunnel will be established as per the instructions within the user role on the switch. The tunnel will be between the mobility controller, or we call gateway, and the switch. So subsequent traffic in the future from the user will hit the switch, will go to the tunnel. In the end of the tunnel, it will be assigned a certain VLAN, whatever VLAN. Now the mobility control will apply its firewall policies as per what you wanted, and then the traffic will be controlled, firewalled, and then will be trunked to go to the infrastructure and go to destination. This default gateway somewhere in the infrastructure, and the destination of the traffic will be as per what is needed. Let's have a look. We'll look at the mobility controller, make sure it is ready for the task. First of all, we're going to go show license. We need AP license, PIF license, and RFP license. So RFP, the PIF, NG, next generation PIF, policy enforcement firewall, and we need an AP license. We're going to see also after that the consumption on the licenses. On top of that, we have to enable firewall visibility and application or deep packet inspection of firewall visibility. So you can do either, we can perform this task either on the command line, or I'll show it to you in both ways, or from the GUI interface. So you can be either, so we are on the mobility controller level and we go to the configuration, and if you'd like to go to services, and there's a firewall service, and if you scroll down a little bit, you'll find that enable firewall visibility. You can see firewall visibility, enable firewall visibility. That requires reboot of the controller, and enable deep packet inspection. If you click on this and you say submit, now we have done it on the MC level. So if you go back to the command line, you're going to see an indication that there is pending config on the left hand side. So I can issue the command show configuration pending. You can see that firewall and basic DPI. So it means we went to the global config and we said firewall and we said DPI. That's what it is, DPI. And you will find show configuration pending. See, these are the configuration pending. We can write mem here, and that requires a reboot of the server, or you can just pending changes, and you can see the pending changes. What we've done, enable these two features, and we deploy this. Now that feature requires a reboot of the controller. We're going to reboot the controller. So now that sign is gone. It means that we're going to go probably exit, and we're going to say reload. Yes, it's going to take a few minutes. I'll come back to this. Now the controller is back online, so we double check, show firewall, and to make it easy for us, include DPI, deep packet inspection, that has been enabled. Okay, now What we need to do is to add the VLAN with the client. We call transit VLAN. So that's going to be VLAN just to enable the traffic in the tunnel to be carried over. And we go global config. And the VLAN we're going to make it is VLAN 3000. And that's it. Simple. And then we're going to say right mid. Also in the switch, we're going to create the VLAN. So that's going to be VLAN 3000. The same VLAN, but we'll give it additional definition. We're going to call it UBT VLAN. So UBT client VLAN will be 3000. Now VLAN needs to exist, but it doesn't get assigned anywhere. So this VLAN, show VLAN 3000, you're going to see VLAN is no member port. Don't worry about down. The only reason for this, we call UBT client VLAN, is to carry the tunneled traffic in the tunnel to the controller. And then on the controller, we will assign a different VLAN. We're going to create the zone now. We're going to equal to UBT, user-based tunneling zone, and the name is just a name. We might want to give it a good name, so we might want to give it a mobility controller, MC, okay? And then if we don't specify the BRF, it will go default by default. So we're going to press enter, and we're going to go primary controller is the IP address of the mobility controller that will tunnel. So that is 10.1.30.10. And then once you do this, you need to enable that zone, enable zone. So once enabled, exit. Now we need to configure the IP source interface. So IP source interface for all services. We would like to go interface VLAN. In this case, 254. In your case, whatever VLAN that is you are managing the switch from. It could be also from MGMT, management port out of band management. It's up to you. Now, if you issue the command show UBT, you're going to see everything is good. That's the gateway. That's a transit VLAN, and that is the status or the operation status of the UBT. I can issue the command similar to this one, state, and we can see it is registered now. Now remember, now the tunnel has been established with the mobility controller. New user has yet authenticated. On the mobility controller, we should see something, tunneled node. So the command here show tunneled, or double N, tunneled node MGR. What is tunneled? We can clearly see the switch anchor controller, right? So the tunneled node MAC address, that's the MAC address, if you like, of the switch, and that's the IP address of the switch. Now we can double check that as well. If we issue the command show system on the switch, show system, we can see that is the MAC address of the switch, which is this one, system MAC, and compare it to this one, that's the same MAC address, and there's a tunnel has been established between the switch and the controller. Now we have not sent any data yet, but the tunnel or the registration has taken place, if you like. Now we can look at the license usage. As we said, show license usage. We're going to see we have consumed 2 PIF because there's one access point anyway, so I'll show you. Show AP databases, one access point that is running, yeah, that consumed 1 license from each, and the switch has consumed 1 license. The total AP 2 licenses, PIF 2 licenses, and RFP 2 licenses. As we said, Each tunnel node consumes one license regardless of how many users authenticate. Now we have not yet authenticated yet. Also the command show data path tunnel, you can see, right? So that's the GRE tunnel has been established, and you can see this one. And the W means the heartbeat. This is the heartbeat tunnel has been established, right? So the switch and the controller have a heartbeat tunnel has been established between each other. So now we will define the employee role. So this is the role that exists as a firewall role. So we're talking about the role on the mobility controller. So you have to be in the global config, and we really define the VLAN that the client should terminate on the controller. Show VLAN. VLAN 31 is the one that will be assigned to the role, remember. So you could do this using the command line, or probably you can do it Google interface. Command line probably is faster. Access list, again, session allow all. For more details on the mobility controller, you can look at my my video on that. VLAN 31. So this is the VLAN that is mapped to that specific role, and we're going to say show configuration pending. These are pending config. I'm going to say write mem. That will save it completely. Now we can say show rights, which is the command to show the roles you have, and the one we have created we called MC role, just MC employee. That's the one, and we can go with a specific name. So role MC employee, it will show you details of that role. Regardless, we created a role. That is the role that will be communicated back to the mobility controller by the tunneled node, which is the switch. So now we can see that we issue the command show port access role. No role has been configured. We're going to configure the role now. We're going to go port access role, and that's employee. So now in this is the role that will be sent back by the ClearPass in this case. Now we need to map the UBT gateway zone to the role we created. And to do that, we issue a command gateway zone, the zone we created, and we will send gateway role when they get into the mobility controller. That's a firewall role, so we will call it authenticated. Any other option? There's no other option. Now show run current context. We can see that once the user authenticated, ClearPass will send this role. The switch will understand it is mapped to the gateway zone called MC, and when that is sent in that gateway zone, we have already defined the mobility controller as a primary server, and then once they hit the controller in the tunnel, they will be assigned firewall role called authenticated. And this firewall role exists on the mobility controller. If you would like to verify that on mobility controller, we can issue the command show rights, and we're going to see authenticated is one of them. That is basically just allowing everything. Or we could, if you would like to, or otherwise we could, rather than doing this, we're going to say employee, MC employee, because that's what we have configured on the mobility controller. Show run current state MC employee, and remember we have also created MC employee earlier, which is this one, which is about allowing everything. It's just to make sure that authentication works. ClearPass send the instructions to the switch, what is the local user role to be assigned, and then within that role we say you map to UB tunnel, And when you reach the mobility controller, you will be assigned the role that we have dictated in there.